Hi everyone. Good to see you on my channel today. Today I will tell you a wonderful story. It is full of love and kindness. I hope you enjoy it and I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Thank you.
Demi was born and lived in the countryside. She dreamed of going to the city from childhood. Go to study, you'll stay there later, her mother told her. I'm afraid not to get in, said the girl about her fears. Why are you talking about the city then? Sit here and stay here. Joan knew she had a daughter who was a troublemaker. Demi had finished 8 grades and was now sitting on her mother's neck. We'll go to the village council tomorrow and get you a job, the woman said sternly. Who? Demi realized that sooner or later her mother would get tired of it all. She could be anything, a milkmaid or something. Joan didn't care what she did, as long as Demi got a job. But Demi was never going to be a milkmaid. In the night there were loud screams. The girl opened her eyes and saw the light outside the window. It was burning neighbor's house. She was scared. Mommy, the girl screamed. When she looked at what was happening outside, she realized that in a few more minutes the flames would spread to their barn. God, Joan began to fidget. She was gathering some things. Why are you sitting there? The mother was trying to stay calm. She grabbed a folder with documents, warm clothes, and dragged her daughter out of the house. The whole village was already outside. Someone was carrying water in buckets stand. People were doing everything they could to put out the flames. There are children in there, shouted a man who was a neighbor on the other side. Joan wet the blankets, threw them over herself, and rushed into the burning house. The rest of the group just groaned and stood with their hands over their mouths. A few moments later, the same woman appeared in the passage. The blanket on her back was burning. She had a baby in her arms. She was also pushing a second one in front of her. Is there anyone else in the house? She was asked. I don't know. She coughed violently. Finally, the sirens of the fire trucks were heard. Along with them were an ambulance and the police. The motorcade pulled up to the house. It was worked quickly. The fire had been extinguished. The houses looked, as the neighbors suggested. There were people left there. The grandmother who stayed with the children died. You knew them. A policeman approached Demi. Of course, they're our neighbors. She looked at the young man. He was handsome. Come on, let's talk. He took her aside. I need to take my mom home. The girl pointed to a woman who was standing not far away. Then I'll help you. My name is Mike. He followed her. Demi, she said as she walked. The girl took Joan under her arm. Mike came from the other side. She seemed to be in a stupor. Here we'll talk. The young man took out a paper and sat down at the table. Demi poured him tea and told him everything she knew about the dead woman. Yes, it's not easy for children now, he shook his head. To go through such a thing. Demi was sad. Everything calmed down. People dispersed, cars drove away. Only in the air there was still the smell of burning. Mom, you're okay. Her daughter came up to the woman. That's how it is. In the evening we were talking to Claire, and now she's gone. She lamented. Nothing can change. The girl stroked her head. Demi went into the kitchen. She sat at the table and looked out the window. For some reason, Mike came to mind. She remembered his dimples when he smiled. I wish I had a husband like that, she said under her breath. She got up and went to her room. There wasn't much time left until morning. She woke up, her head buzzing, looked at the clock. It had only been a couple hours since she'd laid down. Demi washed her face, ate breakfast, went out to the yard. The girl didn't know what she should do. She remembered yesterday's conversation with her mother that she would take her to get a milkmaid. The girl went out of the gate. She was in no mood. Suddenly she saw a police car coming towards her. She looked closely. Mike was driving it. Hello. Demi was happy. She thought she needed some more clarification. And I'm right behind you, the young man said to her without greeting. What? Was discouraged by the girl. I don't know what happened. Yesterday when we talked to you all night did not come out of my head. I decided to take it as it comes. It's love at first sight. I didn't think there was such a thing. Told my boss I'd be a little late, and here I am. To pick you up in town. He spoke very fast and only glanced at her occasionally. You won't believe it. I've been thinking about you too. She blushed. You'll think about it or we'll go. He was determined. I don't know. She looked back at the house where she'd grown up. I'm ready to wait. He stood at attention. I'll be right there. Demi went in the house, threw her stuff down, came back out. I have to warn my mom. The girl ran down the street to where Joan worked. Demi found her mom quickly. What happened? The woman was frightened. The daughter stood there breathing heavily. Mommy, I'm leaving, Demi said and waited for a reaction. What? Where? With who? She fussed. Mike is here for me, remember. He was at our place yesterday, said the girl, and her eyes glistened. You were in your mind you just met, and if it doesn't work out, Mother didn't understand this behavior. Nothing in the city hooked there and stay, was Katharina Demi. All right, do as you please. Joan knew she couldn't change anything. She's a stubborn daughter. She'll do what she wants anyway. You can always come home. Thank you. She kissed her mom on the cheek and ran to Mike. Come here. Joan shouted at her, but Demi couldn't hear her. She was running toward her new life. Mike was standing nearby, so tall and handsome. You decided? He saw her stumble and almost fall. Yeah, we're good to go. Demi was already at the car. So brave. Mike grinned and got behind the wheel. The girl drove, looked out the window, and could not believe that everything could happen like this. Her dream had come true. She was going to the city, and what would happen next, she didn't care. Well, to my place? The young man turned to her. Do you live alone? She asked. No, with my mother. He looked in front of him. And how will she perceive that you only met me yesterday and already brought home? Demi was very interested in that question. Hopefully well. He didn't know it himself. He only thought about it now when she brought it up. Okay, I'm agreeable. We'll get along. Wasn't this to Katharina Demi? They got out of the car, climbed the stairs, entered the apartment. Hello, Demi shouted ahead of her companion. Why yell like that? The woman grumbled. Oh, I didn't mean to. The girl covered her mouth with her hand. Mom. Me, Demi. This is Demi. She's going to live with us. Mike said and looked at her. You were crazy. How long have you two known each other? The woman asked. Mom, don't. I'm an adult. This is my private life. He took the girl by the hand and led her to his room. Grown up, the mother said quietly and pressed her lips together. Margaret was a school teacher. She had grown up in an intelligent family. 20 years ago, her husband died. She'd never lived with anyone else and raised her son alone. She put everything she knew and knew how to do into Mike. She hoped he'd meet a nice girl, they'd get married, and everything would be fine. And now he brings home this redneck. Well, what could she say? The woman knew the night cuckoo would cuckoo anyway, so she didn't say anything now. But Margaret hoped her antics would get Demi to leave the house herself. I'm off to work, and you see yourselves all right here, Mike was saying to the mother and the girl. Of course, Margaret smiled. What are we having for dinner? Demi asked her. Not for lunch, but for breakfast, she corrected her. Good for breakfast, the girl sighed unhappily. Oatmeal. The woman went to the kitchen. Phew, how can you eat this nasty stuff? Demi grimaced. There's nothing to yuck about. If you don't want it, stay hungry, Margaret muttered. The girl went to her room. She was bored, and she did not want to be with the lady of the house. She was exhausted. She waited for Mike from work, looked at the window, read a book, lay on the couch, even made a small rearrangement in the apartment. She rushed over to meet him when he arrived. She's finally here. I have a couple of days off. We'll spend them together, he promised her. Let's go out to eat. I haven't left here at all today, she told the young man. Sure. He opened the door. The mother was in the room. They went into the kitchen. Margaret came to them immediately. Can't you do anything at all? She said to her son. Why do you ask me that? She's here too. Her son didn't turn to her. He was making a sandwich. And what kind of food is it to eat a full meal? She watched her son pour the tea. Mom, please, Mike begged her. Okay. She turned to Demi. What? She didn't understand. Tomorrow we need to do a general cleaning in the apartment. Go to the store. I'm counting on you. She raised her head proudly and went to her room. What a mother you have, Demi said quietly. You better get along with her, Mike advised. I'll try, she promised. Good. Mike believed her. The next day, as promised by the young man, they went for a walk. The guy and the girl were completely unfamiliar, so they needed to learn more about each other. "You are so funny," Demi said and laughed. "You are too." He tapped the tip of her nose with his finger. After walking around and taking a little tour, the couple went to a movie. Demi snuggled up to Mike. He was the only person in her life she could rely on right now. "We're back," Margaret sighed in the hallway. "Yeah, it's nice out," her son smiled at her. "Come in, dinner's on the table," the woman said. "Thank you," Demi said. She needed to build a relationship with her future mother-in-law, she thought. "Oh, you sycophant," the woman spat. When Demi and Mike had eaten, the girl offered to do the dishes. She could do all the chores. The next day, while Mike was doing something in the bathroom, the girl began to curl the rugs, then took them out into the yard, shimmied them. Then she came home, scrubbed the floors everywhere, even asked Mike to move the cabinets away from the walls. "Wow." Margaret came back from the store. "You like it?" Demi knew she'd done well. "Good for you." The woman shook her head. "I'll go to my neighbor's house, she asked me yesterday." Demi went to the kitchen. She had already put the meat cooking. Now all that was left was to dress the soup. The second course was ready. "What smells so good in here?" Mike came into the kitchen. "Sit down or wait for Mom?" she asked. "Sure, we'll wait." He took a step toward Demi. They had never hugged or kissed before this moment. The door creaked open, and they separated without doing anything. "Oh, I'm so hungry." Margaret went into the kitchen. "And we have everything ready," said the young man cheerfully. "I was of a different opinion of you." The woman looked into Demi's eyes. "You see how everything turned out?" Did not show her cool temper, girl. "You bet, get a job or go to school." The hostess switched to another topic. "We'll think about it." Mike stood up in defense of the girl. "Okay, if necessary, I can help with the enrollment," Margaret offered. "Mom can really teach you a lot," Mike said. They sat for a while. Demi washed the dishes, and then they went to their rooms. "And what do you think about enrollment?" the boy asked her. "I don't even know," she was evasive. But a week later, she was sitting next to Margaret. She showed her and told her everything she needed for admission. It turned out that it was not so difficult, the girl died in. At this point, she and Mike were already living as a family. Margaret also got used to Demi. She was glad that her son did not listen to her then, and his fiancée did not go back. "I was a fool not to have done it right after high school. I love it all so much," Demi said. At home, she talked about what they were being taught every day. It was obvious that the girl was interested. "You were smart." Mike stroked her hair. "What are you embarrassing me?" She blushed, because her mother saw it all. "Isn't it time you two got married?" Margaret asked from the room. "Yes, Demi." Mike turned to her. "I agree," she laughed. The young people had only been to the village where Demi lived twice before. Now they were going there to inform Joan that they were going to get married. Margaret had prepared for this event very carefully. She, together with Demi, went to the atelier. They ordered a dress. Mike was bought a suit. Of course, there was also a restaurant. The girl was so excited about it. She realized that if she had stayed in the village, none of this would have happened, which meant that Mike was sent to her by fate. "Yes," sent Mike at the registry office. "Yes," Demi echoed him. A kiss sealed their answers. "My children, I congratulate you." Margaret cried right there. After that, there was a noisy celebration in a restaurant, and then life began, where anything could happen. "Will you be happy with grandchildren?" Margaret asked her daughter-in-law. "God willing." Demi always answered the same thing. 2 years they had nothing worked out, and finally, the long-awaited pregnancy. Mike's back is acting up. In the evening, she asked her husband to give her a massage. "Roll over," he told her. Ouch! She lay on her stomach and threw up. "What are you doing?" It wasn't funny. "I don't know. I felt dizzy." Margaret came into their room when she heard screaming. "What's going on here?" She looked at her sister-in-law and started smiling. "What's so funny?" She looked at her mother-in-law. "Soon there will be a grandchild," said the woman pleadingly. "How did you realize it?" The son came up to his mother and looked at Demi attentively. "I have lived, I know," was Catherine Margaret. And indeed, when the girl went to the hospital, she was told that she was expecting a child. What a blessing it was. Her husband was waiting for her in the street. They went through the streets. On the transport did not want to go. Now Demi's life was beginning to change. Pregnancy was hard. She was constantly nauseous, dizzy, fainting often. "That's because you're not eating anything," Margaret scolded her. "I can't." Demi sat on a stool. She couldn't even look at the food, she was so sick. "You have to get in the mood and force yourself," insisted her mother-in-law. "Okay," Demi agreed. But as soon as she ate, it all came out again in a moment. Oh, when it's due, the woman hugged her daughter-in-law. She felt sorry for her. "I wish it were sooner." Demi was looking forward to it too. In the 7th month, the doctors insisted that the girl went to the hospital. She didn't refuse. At home it was unbearable, and here the doctors still did something. Demi put IVs. After that she could at least eat a little. Finally the day came. In the morning, Demi went to the bathroom and realized that something was wrong with her. Of course, she didn't pay much attention to it, and when she told the doctor about it, she took Demi to the exam room. "All right, get ready. You're going to give birth today." The woman smiled. Demi started to get scared. She had read and heard a lot about childbirth, but now that it was starting to happen to her, she became anxious. "Don't worry so much. Everything will be fine," Mike told her. "Yes, I understand, but it's the body's way of reacting." Demi didn't understand anything yet, but not even an hour later, as began such pain that she forgot about all the worries. There was only one thing on her mind: when the pain would go away. Demi was screaming. She couldn't hear what the doctors were saying. It was making everything go bad. "Calm down," the woman in the white coat shook her. "I can't," but at least Demi heard her. It got easier after that. She started to listen. Finally, it was all over. Both the doctor and the laboring woman were exhausted. "The boy," the doctor said. Demi wanted to see him, but she couldn't even lift her head. "It's okay, they'll bring him soon," the nurse reassured her. She should have told Mike, but how could she do that if she had no strength at all? And her husband didn't wait at home for a call, in case the phone didn't work, or they wouldn't let him call. As soon as Demi disappeared at the window, he went and sat on the bench, waiting. "Young man," called him a young girl in a robe. "Are you for me?" He stood up. "You're Mike, Demi's husband." She was coming toward him. "Yes," he nodded. His heart was pounding frantically in his chest. "Congratulations, you're having a boy." She smiled and shook his hand. "How's the wife?" This question also interested him. "Everything is fine. Both are healthy. Now just wait for discharge," she said. The girl left and Mike went to the window of his wife's room. "Demi," he shouted. She heard him, but it was so hard to get up. "Why are you lying here? You have a baby now. No lying down." The nurse came with the baby in her arms. "Yeah, I'll be right up." Demi got up, took her son in her arms and went to the window. "Thank you," Mike shouted. He was grinning from ear to ear. "Look, there's your daddy," the young mom said quietly to the baby. The girl lay with her son and could not admire him. It was time for discharge. Mike, Margaret, and friends were already waiting at the entrance. Dad was handed a package with a blue bow. He, in turn, presented a small bouquet to Demi. "Oh, what a tiny," Grandma said. They arrived home and the crib was already in the parents' room. Margaret did not leave her daughter-in-law and her grandson. "And now let's go swimming." She took the baby in her arms. Demi watched everything. If she had once thought that she did not want to live with her mother-in-law, she was now grateful for her help. "You do everything so well. I still have to learn and learn from you," the girl told her. "Nothing, you'll learn." She was hooting in the bathroom with Tom. The family was getting noisy now. Tom would cry in the evenings. Grandma would put him on her knee and stroke his back. The boy quickly calmed down. Then he crawled, moving around the room so fast that no one could keep up with him. "Mike, Tom took his first step today," Demi told her husband when he got home. "Wow, I missed it all again." He was upset, but when his son said his first word, he was in his daddy's arms. Say it again," he pleaded with him. It was so funny to watch the little boy grow up. The grandmother from the village also came when the grandson was a year old. Joan brought all her homemade milk, cottage cheese, sour cream, and vegetables. "Why didn't you warn her? You would have met her," Demi asked her. "It's all right," she carried it. She couldn't wait to hold the boy in her arms. "That's good," Margaret said when she saw that everyone was ready. "The guests are coming tomorrow, and we need to prepare the table," Demi said. "We've already put everything on the cold," the grandmothers fussed. 1 year of Tom's life was celebrated in a big way. The guests gave so many different toys that there was nowhere to put them. "Come to the village. The boy needs fresh air," Joan said as she left. "Okay, hug your daughter and son-in-law." Tom went to kindergarten. Demi got ready to go to work. She was offered a cashier position at an institution. Grandma was a big help. She took her grandson to daycare, walked him in the yard. "If it weren't for you, I would have had to go broke." Demi talked to her mother-in-law in the evening. "It's okay." Margaret had already bonded so much with Demi as if she were her daughter. They liked to sit up in the evenings and talk about all sorts of things until Tom fell asleep. The boy was growing up very fast. Now that Demi was working, she didn't have time to notice how the days went by. Here is the son already at the graduation in kindergarten, telling poems. "Perhaps we should send him to the country for a summer month," Margaret said. "I wouldn't mind going there myself." "Well, what's the trouble? Pack up and go." Mike looked at them, and Margaret, who was completely city dweller, went on vacation with her grandson. The in-law was very happy to have guests. She was tired of living alone. From then on, every summer Tom traveled with his grandmother to breathe fresh air. When the boy studied in the 5th grade, he began to express his opinion. "I do not want to go to the village. I want to stay here. You were stubborn." "How can it be? We used to vacation there every year." Margaret stood next to him. "You go and have a rest." Tom looked at her. "I will. I'll see what you'll do here alone." Margaret began to pack. She was planning to move to that village in general. It was quiet and beautiful there. The woman had even talked to her son about it. He said he would think about it. "Why aren't you packed?" "Demi came for lunch." "I'm not going anywhere." And to her he showed his character. "No, my dear, this year you'll still go, and then we'll see who will stay home with you." "Come on, get ready," she told him. He mumbled something to himself, but packed his bag. He and his grandmother sat again on the bus that was taking them to village life. The next year he didn't go anywhere. He said his mom had promised him that. "What are you going to do here?" Mike asked him. "Nothing, I'll watch TV at home." Tom didn't know what to say. He stayed at home for almost a month. "Tom, do you want to go to camp?" Demi asked him and showed him the voucher. "What can you do? The guy's never gone there yet." The whole family was packing Max for the road. Even Margaret had come from the village. She'd been living there for a few months. She loved it. "Be good there," Demi tried to admonish her son. I know, he didn't want to be told off like a little boy. The son left the house. He probably hadn't gotten there yet, and his mother and grandmother were already starting to think different things. But it had all turned out all right. Now Tom was asking them to buy him more and more trips. Where only he did not go, where he did not visit, everything was always interesting. Parents encouraged the boy in everything. He was good. When the 9th grade came to an end, Tom, as usual, was sent to camp. Margaret had already completely settled in the village. Micah and Demi were left alone in the apartment. The woman sat in the kitchen. Dinner was long ready, but her husband was still not there. Demi was very worried. She had already called to their department, but she was told that Mike had left long ago. She went from corner to corner. She couldn't even figure out where he was or what he was doing. At 11 p.m., the lock opened and Mike walked into the apartment. "Where have you been?" She came out of the kitchen, not yelling, speaking calmly. "Demi, don't be mad. I'm leaving," he said and walked into the room. Then he took out his bag and started packing. Mike explained, "My wife stood in the hallway and couldn't move. I met someone else, and I'm fine with her. I don't want to deceive you anymore. I'll talk to my son myself. Goodbye." He was standing in front of Dr. Catherine. "What about us, the family? It's your apartment." She tried to stop him somehow. "Go ahead, I'm not chasing you." He didn't even turn to her, just closed the door behind him. The woman stood in the hallway. She looked at that door and did not understand what she should do. After that, tears flowed from her eyes. She could not calm down. What to do? Where to run to? Who to ask? How could he do this? There were a million questions in her head, but no one could give her any answers. "Demi, what's wrong?" She arrived at work the next day and was met by a friend. "Mike left me," she admitted honestly. "How could he do that? You had such a good family," was amazed by her friend. "I don't understand. Everything was fine. He went to work in the morning, and when he came home, Demi was crying. She wanted to call Margaret for help, but there was only one phone in the village. Demi didn't want to call there. Everyone would know right away. She began to think who the other one Mike had left might be, but nothing came to mind. He'd never been known to cheat. "Mom, I'm home." Tom arrived. A crying woman came out to him. "What's wrong?" He went straight to her. "Dad left." She didn't lie. "He left us." "How could he?" The boy couldn't understand. "I don't know." She started crying again. The tears hadn't dried up this whole time. Demi threw all her energies into getting her husband back. She called mutual acquaintances to influence his decision. When she found out where he lived, she came, cried, begged, but Mike just looked at her and said nothing. "I love you." Demi shouted to him, but there was nothing in her husband's eyes. Soon Margaret came to visit them. When she found out what her son had done, she immediately sided with Demi. "Scoundrel," rumbled mother-in-law. "What am I going to do now?" It was getting close to New Year's Eve. Everything was falling apart. Tom had a hard time in high school. He came to his mother many times to talk to her, but she didn't care. She was crying about her husband leaving. "Tom, are you with us?" a friend he met at camp asked him. "Yeah, my mother doesn't care where I am or what I'm doing," he said. And right after school they would go behind the garages. There was a company gathering there. Obviously they didn't do anything good there. He'd come home, he'd leave, but nobody noticed. Tom went from being a good boy to a bully. "Demi, I found out he's going to be at the restaurant with her tonight," Margaret told her. Good, Demi was getting ready. The woman was ready to do anything to get her beloved Mike back. "I'm with you," her mother-in-law told her. Good, the woman agreed. They showed up at the establishment fully armed. Demi was in a beautiful dress with excellent makeup and hair. "What are you doing here?" Mike jumped up from the table. "I wanted to look at my potential daughter-in-law," Margaret said calmly. "And you?" Looked at Demi. "And why can't I come to the restaurant? Is it illegal?" She looked him straight in the eyes. "Well, hello, child," sat down at the table to the girl Margaret. "Shall we talk?" Demi asked. "Okay." He once again looked back at the table where his mother was sitting. "Hello," the young lady barely whispered. "You do realize that your chosen one has a family, a wife and a child. And until you appeared in his life, everything was fine," said the woman in a calm voice. "Why are you meddling in his life?" She suddenly showed her teeth. "Oh, we can be sassy." Margaret was not the type to take offense. "What do you want?" "We love each other," she said. Margaret didn't even bother to ask her name. "Okay, but know this, if Demi steps aside, I'll stay with you, and you'll really regret doing that." The woman leaned toward her. "Are you threatening me?" The woman stood up. Margaret smiled and went to the table where her son and his wife were sitting. "Mom, why the circus?" Mike looked at the woman. "Demi, let's go," pretended not to notice his mother. "Mike, I hope you understood everything." Tears stood in his eyes. Not even a month later, Mike returned. His new date still couldn't forget the conversation with the woman. She had broken up with him herself. "Come on in." Demi opened the door. "So what? How am I supposed to live with you after this?" He kept his head down. "Consider it nothing. We'll forget about it and never remember." Demi put her arms around her husband. "What's that smell on you?" Demi walked over to Tom. He was sitting in his room, looking at the TV, but as if he hadn't seen anything. "I finally remembered that you have a son," he told her. While Demi was getting her husband back, Tom had gotten completely out of hand. "Tom, I'm going to call my father." The woman was indignant. "What will he do to me? I'll never forgive him for leaving." The guy was acting out of control. "Mike, it's all my fault," cried Demi in the kitchen. "What are you talking about? Tomorrow we will have a conversation with our son." Mike boasted. He tried to be right, but nothing helped. No matter how many times the parents talked to the son, he stood his ground. The kid would leave in the evening and come home practically in the morning. "Tom, what's going on with you? You used to be a normal boy, and now..." The mother threw a tantrum. "What do you want from me? You haven't noticed what I do for a whole year," snapped at the boy. "What are you going to do?" Demi yelled. "I'm not going anywhere." He waved her away. "What do you mean you won't?" His mother's eyes went wide. "It's very simple." He wasn't shy anymore, and he was coming straight home inadequate. "No, I won't let you do it. You're ruining yourself, your life." The woman didn't know what to say. Okay, the guy waved her off. There were still a few months left till graduation. The boy managed to finish school. Teachers knew he was capable, so they pulled him through. So Demi, the homeroom teacher, came to the house. I don't even know what he's gonna be. Do not worry, we will do everything for it, soothed her mother. I'm not Catherine. The woman shook her head. Tom didn't go to the graduation. He said he wasn't interested. No matter how much his father and mother persuaded him, he ignored their words. The guy still went to study, but not where he was going even recently. You understand, it's your life, and you take it and break it with your own hands, his father told him strictly. You tried to break everything with your own hands too, his son kept looking at him. That's different, Mike sighed. Well, everything was going the way it was going. Now the young man was in technical school. Are you not going home? Asked his roommate. What am I going to do there at my parents'? Tom told him. I see. Come with me, Brad called out to him. No, I'd rather be alone. He thanked him for the invitation. Okay, I'll see you Monday. They shook hands. Tom stayed in the dormitory, but he couldn't stay in one place for long. In the morning, the next day, he got ready and went outside. The guy just wanted to go for a walk. He sat in the park on a bench, listening to music. Tom saw that people were passing by. Everyone was talking about something, doing something. It was interesting to watch. Ouch! The guy didn't hear the shout, but he felt that someone pounced on him. What are you doing? He turned around. I'm sorry, a pretty girl was looking at him. How did this happen? Tom didn't understand. She came at him from behind the bushes. I was jostling with my girlfriends. She got up, looked at the guy again, and disappeared behind the bushes. Tom heard them whispering and laughing. Hi, he came out through the bushes to them. You don't take offense, it really came out by accident, the girl said, and Tom looked at the one that had fallen on him. Tom, he said to all of them, but his eyes were fixed on only one. Susie, and her full name is Suzanne, she said. Nice to meet you. He felt like doing something. He stood there silent. The girls looked at him. Come with us, one of them said. Where to? He was still looking at that girl. Just for a walk, they laughed. Good. He didn't care where he went, because the guy was walking. The company set off along the alley. Let's go alone, he whispered to Susie. What about them? She pointed to the girls. Well, the two of them, they won't be bored, he parried. Good, she agreed with him. Susie turned to her girlfriends, said something to them, and was ready to go. Come on. Tom pulled her in the opposite direction. It was good for the two of them, even though the boy and girl didn't know each other yet. You're so fun and interesting. You're comfortable to be around, Tom told her. With you too, she didn't look at him. Come by the dorm tomorrow, Tom told her. Okay, she agreed. They parted late that evening, just before Tom's dorm closed, but he made it. After he came in and went to bed, he thought about his new acquaintance for a long time. Tomorrow she came. Tom was already waiting for her. The guy and the girl walked. They talked about everything in the world. It was immediately obvious that they had common interests. What do you do? Tom asked her. I study in pedagogical school, but I want to become a model. I'm trying to do my best, but it's a start, said Susie. I see you're going to the studio, he guessed. Yes. She looked at him and wondered how he had guessed. Will you show me the pictures? He asked. Yes, sometime. Then she laughed. The young people started dating. Tom didn't want to, but he had to go home. To be friends with a girl, you need money, and he didn't have any. Son, why did you come for so long? Demi hugged him. It's all right. Tom went into the room. His father was sitting in the chair. Hello. Mike looked at his son. Hi, the boy mumbled. He still couldn't forgive the man. Demi started cooking something in the kitchen. She was really glad that Tom had come. She thought that his resentment towards his parents would last for a long time. Son, come into the kitchen. Let's sit and talk, she called him. The boy came in. The mood was not at all. He sat and ate, and the woman kept asking him what was going on. Mom, I'm fine. He didn't look at her. The young man just wanted to take the money and leave again in the morning to go to school. If he came, he must have needed something, the woman guessed. Yes, he nodded. I'd like some money. I don't have enough. He was ashamed to ask, but he had no choice. Of course, his mom tried to please the boy with everything. She went to the room. Tom heard her and his father whispering, but he didn't react in any way. Afterward, the woman came back in and put some bills on the table. "Thank you." Tom, though ashamed to ask, was pleased that his mother had given much more than he had expected. "When are you going back?" She didn't know how to find the words and what to say. "In the morning, and now to bed." He went to the room that had once been his. He hadn't stayed long enough. Demi stayed in the kitchen. Mike didn't come out until after Tom left. "Why don't you talk to him?" his wife asked him. "I can't. I'm ashamed," the man honestly admitted. "I understand." Demi sat next to him. Tom, while he was in his town, went to the store and bought a small bracelet. He wanted to please Susie, hoping she would like his gift. They met at the train station. "I have a surprise for you." The guy pulled a long box out of his pocket. "Why you didn't have to." She put her hands to her cheeks. "Look at it." He opened it. Inside was a thin chain as dainty as the girl herself. It was so pretty. Susie hugged the young man. Once again, they walked and talked and did whatever they wanted. "What are they like, your parents?" Susie asked him. "Ordinary." He shrugged his shoulders. "I'd like to meet them," she said dreamily. "I don't know." Tom looked at her and thought that he could do anything for this girl. He decided that now it was too early to introduce her to her parents. But some time would pass, and they would definitely go. Except that first the guy decided to take Radu to her grandmother, and then already to her mother and father. He thought about it. She looked at him. "About us?" He smiled. Tom realized, even to himself, that he had changed a lot. Whereas before, perhaps to the anger of his parents, he had behaved very badly. Now he didn't need any of that. "Why don't you ever tell me anything about yourself?" the young man asked his girlfriend. "I think that you would not be interested in it," she honestly admitted. "I am interested in everything about you." He admired her. "Well, when the time comes, I'll be sure to tell you. It's just very hard for me to remember." She got sad all at once. "I won't insist. As soon as you decide, you'll tell me." He didn't know what attracted him to this girl, but he was drawn to her. Her black eyes were so deep. Tom loved to look at them. Susanna was an unusual girl. She liked to wear brightly colored short skirts, and she wore brightly colored makeup as well. Her exterior and interior did not match at all. When you first meet her, you think she was going out to party. But after she started talking, it was clear that her appearance was probably to attract attention. "Susie, aren't you tired of hanging around the dorms?" he asked her. "What do you suggest?" She glanced at him and laughed. "Let's get an apartment and start living together." He was shaking with excitement at his idea. "Oh no, I don't have the money for that." She didn't agree with him. "I'll arrange everything," was Catherine and himself young man. "It's such an expense." She hesitated. "But we'll always be there for each other." Tom was so enthusiastic that he was ready to run right now and look for a place to live. "Yes, that would be good." She touched his cheek with the palm of her hand. Somehow she always did that. Tom liked that gesture. The boy decided to patch things up with his parents. The next weekend he went home again. "You've been coming home a lot." His father opened the door. "Come on," did not come, took offense. Now he started and again not the same. Tom stood in the hallway. "What are you talking about?" Demi came out to them. "Come on in." They were sitting in the kitchen, just as their son used to eat, and his mother looked at him and smiled. "I didn't come here for nothing," Mike began. "I wanted to talk to you about rented accommodation." Tom began cautiously. "What's wrong with the dormitory?" Mike choked up. "No, I'm fine. I just wanted to ask if it's so noisy that I can't study or concentrate," he lied. "Mike, maybe we should really rent an apartment. It's not that expensive." Demi took her husband's hand. "I don't even know." The man drove his fork on his plate. The next day, Mike walked into his son's room. "Okay, I agree to rent you an apartment, but for now only until the end of this school year. We must first look at your behavior, and then we will think further," he said. "Thanks, Dad." Tom had even forgotten all his resentments. Mike had plans. He wanted to leave the organs and invent something new. Demi supported him because he knew they would succeed. Tom returned to Rada's house in a good mood. He spent a few days looking for an apartment, looking at prices. Finally, the apartment was found, the money was paid, and he could move in. "It's so strange," Susie said as they moved things in. What was unusual about it? The boy didn't understand. He felt like he was at home. Tom, when I tell you my story, you might not want to see me again. She put her hand on his cheek again. What is this saying? I love you and I want to be with you forever. The boy was scared. He thought that in this way the girl was warning him about the imminent party. Not now, she said calmly. The boy and the girl started living together. They would both leave in the morning to go to school. After returning, Susie would cook and clean the house. In the evening, she had to run to the studio, and Tom stayed behind, sometimes cooking dinner. Everything was perfect in the couple. They never quarreled. There was no occasion. Susie did everything for Tom, and he tried to do everything for her. Beloved, I think it's time to tell you everything. She once sat down next to him on the sofa. What? Tom tensed. He dreaded moments like this. Remember, I told you that I would tell you my story at some point. She looked at him with her black eyes. Yes, he nodded and didn't know what he was about to hear. Or maybe he shouldn't. Sooner or later it will come out, then maybe it will be too late. Susie spoke judiciously. All right, the young man bowed his head. My mother's name is Neely. She raised her eyes to his. Why didn't you tell me before that you had a mother, and with such a beautiful name? Said Tom excitedly, but then he was silent, thinking that something might have happened to her. So when she was a young girl, she got involved with a guy. At first they were fine, but after that, she stopped talking. Tell me, Tom was ready for anything. My mother is a gypsy. Her relatives do bad things. That's where she brought her boyfriend. She sat staring at the floor. I know what you mean, Tom told her carefully. Lex hadn't done anything at the time, but he'd gotten hooked on illegal drugs when he'd gotten involved with his mother's relatives. The gypsies did it on purpose so he'd start distributing. She cried. Calm down, the young man hugged her. And then he died because his body couldn't cope, she mumbled. And mother decided to find out everything to the end, Tom. I don't know exactly for what, but she went to jail. She was pregnant with me then. Susie looked up at him. My poor baby, he kissed her. I was born there, in a place not so far away, and immediately I was taken to an orphanage. My mother didn't want to stay there with me, Susie said. So you grew up in an orphanage, the boy said. Yes, when she got freed, she came to get me, but I didn't want to go anywhere with her. I was scared. Susie was still sobbing. Did she manage to get you? Tom asked. Yes, she had all the conditions for that. And then it started. She brought men. It's horrible to remember. Neely got her maternity rights taken away, and I ended up back there. My family wanted to help, but no one would give me back to them. Susie was sitting up now. She wouldn't look at Tom. She was ashamed. My baby, he held her close to him. You're not reacting. Why? She looked at her young man. And how should I react? I do not want to regret. It's been over for a long time. Look at you. You're smart and beautiful, doing things, studying. He kissed her face. You don't think I'm gonna leave you because of them ever. You were the best. Finally, she smiled and hugged him. Time passed. Susie never asked Tom about his parents. She thought he kept quiet. So it must be so. You don't talk to them, do you? One day she just asked him. Who? He didn't understand. His parents. She faded her gaze. Why do you ask? He'd been thinking about it for a long time, thinking it was time to introduce his mother and father to his fiancée, but he didn't really want to do it yet. Things were going so well between them, and he was just afraid of scaring off that fragile relationship. No, you just never talk about them. She got up and went to make dinner. If you want, we can go and meet them, he ventured. Let's finish our studies first, and then we'll see. Susie had always been sensible. She went to the studio every night, where they practiced, took pictures. The girl brought home beautiful pictures. You are already beautiful, the guy told her, and on the photo you get even better. Thank you. She did not get tired of thanking him for compliments. Parents rented Tom an apartment. If he had managed to find some income, he would not have asked them for money. But there were no suitable jobs. Let's go to live after school in the town where I was born, Tom asked Greta. Why don't you like it here? Susie shrugged her shoulders. No, I like it. It's just that I have some connections there. He smiled at her. I've got a job coming up. The studio director has selected some girls for a contest, and I'm one of them. She was shy again. Why do you always talk modestly about your achievements? The young man could not understand. I don't know. She shrugged her shoulders. While Susie was busy with her contest, The guy decided to go and visit his parents. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Tom told Rada everything and went to the train station. There he took an electric train and came to his hometown. Hi. Tom entered the apartment. The resentment against his father was somewhere deep inside, and if before he showed it, now he wanted to hide it somewhere deeper. The family's here. His mother came out to greet him. And this is what you have here. The boy saw boxes and other trash. You live far away and you don't know anything. The woman laughed. Tom saw that his mother had changed a lot. No, not externally, internally. Mike, after much persuasion from his wife, left the organs. They went into business together. First, they took out a loan to buy and rent the place. Then they started doing what Demi had in mind. Mike traveled, bought good Turkish things, and then they sold them in the store. Demi worked as a saleswoman herself. People came. They realized that the quality of things was very good, so they did not spare money. Mike and Demi were one of the first in town to do it. They paid off the loan, and the profits just kept growing. What am I supposed to know? Tom was puzzled. We're selling our apartment because we bought another, bigger one, said his mother. She behaved freely and uninhibitedly. It was obvious that she felt herself the mistress of life. I see. Though the boy didn't understand anything. You'll help me. The father was walking by with boxes. Sure. Picked up the son, and they carried them to the street. What, you live in an apartment with a girl? Mike asked him. Yeah, thanks. The boy didn't know what else to say. It's okay. In the parents' relationship, it was as if nothing had ever happened, and only Tom remembered it. After the boxes were in the car, they had to be taken to a new place. Can I come with you? The boy was interested to see the new chambers of his parents. Of course, why would you ask? The father smiled. They sat down and drove off. The mother saw it all from the window. She was glad that her son and his father were getting along better. After money appeared in the family, Demi really felt that she could do a lot. The woman began to dress in stores instead of at the market. They bought a car, a new apartment. The woman, if at first she still kept up the work pace, afterwards she said she was very tired, and they hired a salesperson. Now Demi was running the household at home. But what? Everything is taken. She asked her husband when they arrived. No, we need to make one more run. He turned to Tom. Let him stay here. I need to talk to him, the mother asked. I don't mind, the man said. You took a few more boxes and went to the car. Wow, how things have changed for you. The guy quickly went to the kitchen and looked for something to eat. Everything happens in life. Nemi sat across from him. Why don't you tell us anything about the girls? She started a conversation, which the guy was a little afraid of. He wouldn't look her in the eye. Do you have any? She waited impatiently. Yes, he didn't want to tell her. I don't want to pull words out of you, she begged him. No, I'm not going to say anything yet. He shook his head. All right, I'll wait. She opened the refrigerator, put bread, butter, and some jars on the table. What's this? He didn't understand. Eat it. It's very tasty caviar. She spread butter on a slice of bread and picked up some caviar. Phew, I don't want it. Tom pushed the whole thing away from him. Oh, the Fed, look at him. The woman acted as if she had come down from heaven to some beggar's house. Tom was so disgusted by it all. He realized that his mother had changed so much in a short time that it seemed as if she wasn't her. But Tom needed money, so he couldn't just leave, and he had to put up with it. Will your father be back soon? He asked her. I don't know, but you wanted him to. And now his mother didn't like him. It was like he'd come to a strange aunt's house to ask for money. I'm your son after all, and I'm studying in another city. So far I have to provide, he said quietly. Here, she brought him some bills and put them on the table. Thank you. Tom was shocked that his mother had money now. Okay, I'll be on my way then. He watched. Usually at this point she would run up and hug him. That didn't happen now. The mother just stood there and watched. Come on. Bye. Suzanne was home. She was cooking dinner and waiting for her lover to come home. Hi. He came into the apartment with a bag containing groceries. I'm here. She looked but didn't come over. How are things going with the pageant? He took off his shoes and walked to the kitchen. It's fine. The girl seemed to be understating things. Are you coming or not? Tom tried to get her to say, I am. She didn't make eye contact again. Why are you having so much fun talking about it then? Tom couldn't understand anything. She had always been so open and smiling, and now it was the opposite. Susie was more reticent. I don't want to bring it up yet, she said honestly. Okay, but don't forget to talk to me later. For some reason, he felt a pain in his heart. It seemed to Tom that the girl had grown cold to him. I love you. She leaned over and kissed him. I love you too. Tom smiled. After dinner, they decided to go for a walk, talked about everything but the girls' contest. When they got home, they went to bed. Tom thought that something had to be done about the relationship. He wanted this girl to be there for him forever. He didn't know what he needed to do to him to get him to give her up. Have you thought about talking yet? He asked her this morning. I don't think you'd like it. She became sad again. Talk, Tom insisted. I've reached the semifinals. The finals are coming up soon. I'll have to go abroad for a year. She stared out the window while she said all this. That's great news. Why are you so sad about it? He jumped up from his chair. I'll have to go alone. She cried. Why are you crying? A year isn't that long. I'll wait, and you'll do all your business there. He was at Catherine's. I don't want to leave you. She finally turned around. I don't want to break up with you either. But who said anything about breaking up? He didn't understand. After the contest, you'll have to sign a contract for at least a year, and that means two. She sat down on the table and picked up her fork. Susie, why don't we get married? He asked her. What? She turned to him. Why, while we're waiting for your final, by then we'll have just enough time to do the wedding and everything else. He put his arm around her. Are you serious? I do. She didn't know whether to be happy or cry. Yes, I'm absolutely serious. I'll buy you a ring tomorrow, he promised her. The guy realized that he had no money. He had to go to his parents again, but it didn't matter. He thought that for the first time they could live with him, because now the apartment was very big. And after Susie left, he would wait for her and just get a job, and maybe his father would help with that. Love, trust me, we'll be fine, he told her. I know, she kissed him on the nose. Tom decided to wait a little longer until his parents were settled in their new place, and then visit them. I'll try to get a job, he told her after they talked about the wedding. A month passed, but there was no ring, no business cards to his parents. Tom didn't know what he was afraid of. Then the boy pulled himself together. He decided to visit his grandmother and ask her advice. Susie, do you want to go with me to my grandmother's village? Tom asked her. Why not? She had wanted to meet his relatives for a long time. Then it's settled. Let's go, he smiled. Margaret and Joan had been best friends for a long time. Even though they lived in different houses, they spent all their time together. Oh, Joan, I'm so glad I decided to come here. It's quiet and peaceful, the woman said. Yes, I'd like it here too, I always have, said a local woman. What a lot of things they did. Margaret, as soon as she arrived, began to set her own rules in the village. She got a room in the clubhouse, and now many people came there. They did needlework and baking and skiing and ice skating and all sorts of things. And you're fun to be with, Joan told her. Yes, I could never sit still. Margaret was never bored. They were sitting on a bench when they saw two people coming toward them. Tom. Margaret jumped to her feet. It can't be. Joan stared into the distance, but couldn't see anything. I'm telling you, he's coming, the woman nodded. Who is he with? The second grandmother wondered. I don't know. With the girl, Margaret pursed her lips. God, why didn't he say anything? Joan said worriedly. They waited, both of them nervous. When Tom and Susie came closer, the grandmothers immediately rushed toward them. Hello, family. They hugged their grandson and looked at the girl. Grandmothers, you are always together, laughed Tom. And you don't like something. The women smiled. Meet Susie, he told them. I'm Margaret. One introduced herself habitually. And I'm just Grandma Joe, said the other. Nice to meet you. The girl hugged both women. They went into the house, where various treats were waiting for them. Have you been to your parents' house? They sat down at the table and began to discuss. No, I came to your place first, the boy admitted. I don't know how Demi will receive you. The woman looked at Susie's outfit. It looked like she had just come from a strip club. I've noticed she's changed a lot. Tom confirmed her words. Don't follow her lead. Don't listen to her, Margaret advised. What can she start? Joan sat there and didn't realize her daughter had changed so much. She could do anything. Tom didn't know why Grandma Margaret was talking about Mom like that, since they'd always gotten along so well. So should we go to her or not? The young man counseled his grandmother. You young people do whatever you want. You have your whole life ahead of you. Joan looked at them. I can't do that. Tom couldn't say out loud that he depended on his parents. Ed, been there, done that. What are we going to spend our whole lives hiding now? Tom stood up. At this moment, Susie was not in the house. She was taken away by her grandmother to show everything here. Of course, Margaret came up to him. She loved her grandson more than life and wished him nothing but the best. You're on my side, maybe with us. He beckoned to her to come along. God forbid, she crossed herself. I see that you have already communicated, and it did not lead to anything good, concluded the guy. If you've noticed that she's changed, I've already changed, the woman said in a whisper. Okay, the young man saw that the grandmother and Susie were walking back. And you knew, Catherine, that this is yours. Margaret nodded at the girl. You have something against it. The boy turned to her. No, you what? She made big eyes to avoid arguing with him. Are you leaving already? Joan asked. No, we'll stay till morning, said the grandson. He walked over to Suzanne. The rest of the day was spent together, talking, cooking. Afterward, they discussed various news. At dinner, the grandmothers were who Katharina, that their grandson had made the right choice. They liked Susie. Tom, let's go, his grandmother called him. What's the matter? He was surprised that everything was so secret. You need to get Demi to listen to Susie, she advised him. What's wrong? The boy still couldn't understand. If she sees her, she will definitely not accept her, was Catherine's grandmother. Okay, tomorrow we'll figure it out. He looked somewhere past the woman and thought. When everyone went to bed, Tom couldn't sleep for a long time. He lay looking at the ceiling and thought again, why did everything happen in his life? Because he was born in a normal family. His mother was from the village. What right she had to command him now? After that, there were more thoughts, but the guy did not remember them. He fell asleep. Wake up! Ransom heard the voice of his grandmother in the morning. They got up, washed up, had breakfast, and went to the city to his parents. I'm worried, Susie told him. Me too, he told her the truth. The car stopped in front of the new house. The boy and the girl got out of the cabin. Tom himself had only been here once, when he helped his father bring things in. They went into the entryway. The apartment was on the second floor. Mom, hi. Tom saw her and took a step to enter. And who is this? The woman asked without greeting. This is Suzanne, my fiancée, said the son. Did you pick her up on a street corner or in a strip club? The mother was shocked to the core. Listen, Tom said, trying to get something out of her. You listen to me. There will be no public women or gypsies in my apartment. She put her hand out. What are you talking about? The boy turned to Susie. She was crying. What I see is what I say. The woman couldn't keep quiet. Then I'll go with her, Tom said proudly. You can expect no more money from us. The mother was adamant. Don't. He took Susanna's hand and they left the apartment. Tom, don't be like that. Stay. The girl stopped him at the entrance. That I will not leave you. I love you. We'll live somehow. He was at it with Catherine. They drove back to their apartment. It was paid for before the end of the month. There they both separated. She to the kitchen and he to his room. It wasn't easy. I'm sorry about her. Tom came to Susie. What are you apologizing for? She was surprised. For her, I think, what has become of my mother, who was always a good person? Now this money has really spoiled her. You saw the way she looked at us, and not just you, but me too. It brought back memories of the time, when my mother would run after my father in tears, bring him back. I needed a son back then. Calm down. Susie put her palm to his cheek, as she always did. The next day, the girl went out on business, and Tom couldn't stand it. He went to the store, bought alcohol, didn't go out, stayed home. He did not understand how they would live on. School was coming to an end, nothing concrete about a job, where to get money, how to pay the rent, and everything else. What's up? Susie came home to find Tom drunk. I'm sorry, he apologized again. No, that's not the way to do it. You'll only make things worse. She lifted him up and put his head in her lap. The month is ending and we have no money to pay the rent, he mumbled. It's okay, we'll figure something out. She had a knack for that. But there was nothing to think of. There was no money. Then Tom said that they would stay at his friend's house for the time being. Wouldn't we embarrass him? Said Susie, worried. I think not. Tom was not in it with Catherine. The friend was a jolly fellow. He liked to go out for a drink and then sit and talk for a long time. Susie liked all that at first, but when it started to happen every day, she decided to talk to Tom. You're not going to be like him. She was not only worried about his physical health, but his emotional health as well. Calm down. It's okay. If you don't stop, I'll leave, the girl said seriously. So it's okay though. Tom looked at her and smirked. While you're in this state, you're doing fine, and then it's going to be bad. She was with Catherine about it. Oh, what are you talking about? He wanted to hug her, but Suzanne prevented him from doing so. Tom didn't heed the girl's words. He didn't change a thing. They were still having fun and drinking with a friend. When Tom saw her packing, he tensed up. Where are you going? He asked Susie. I'm going out. She was crying. Wait, everything will get better. He was in it with Catherine. Tom drove to his parents' house. He wanted to apologize, tell them everything would be all right, and ask them for money again. Show up, his father said when he opened the door for him. Mom, Dad, help me. She might leave for good. Give her money to rent an apartment, he pleaded. Tom, if she leaves on her own now, believe me, it will only be better. Demi looked at the young man. You don't understand. I love her. He almost cried. Well, love will pass. You will love another, said the woman. No, you don't understand anything about it. The son was already crying. And if I tell you that we'll buy you an apartment if you leave her. The mother went on a trick to sell her love for an apartment. He looked up at her. Why, that's not a bad option. She smirked. You're callous. You have no heart, Tom said. Tom left, but he didn't go to Susie's place. He went to his childhood friends. There was alcohol again, talking and everything else. In the morning, the boy showed up at his parents' house again. I agree. He sat down in front of his mother in the kitchen. That's good. You can see my son. She took his hand. What are you talking about? Father came in. Tom agreed to the apartment. You don't have to explain the rest. But you can look out for options then. Mike was smiling. Tom was feeling guilty right now. He realized that he had just abandoned his love for some apartment. How to live with that now? But he couldn't do otherwise. Suzanne would have left him anyway. There was no money to be had. Son, look, they came to a high-rise building. Where? Let's at least go into the entrance, he asked them. The apartment was one room, very cozy. The young man immediately took a liking to it. He stood in the room, went through the bathroom. Well, his parents were waiting for him. I like it, the son smiled. Then it is decided, tomorrow you move in. His father approached him. Tom stopped thinking about Susie. He realized now that she was away for the pageant, but when she came back, he could bring her here. Her parents don't go that often. They wouldn't recognize her. We're visiting. Demi and Mike came, after the guy had checked into the new apartment. Come on in. Tom wasn't ready for this. The parents came in, and the girl came in after them as well. Hi. She smiled at the young man. Come on in. He wasn't expecting this. Tom, meet Catherine. She is the daughter of a good woman. Demi started talking right away. Okay, nice to meet you, Catherine. I'm Tom. He shook her hand. They walked into the room. There was hardly anything there yet. A table had been brought in from the kitchen. They sat down on the couch. And I liked you right away, the girl began to say in a thin voice. Uh-huh. The boy was kind of disgusted. He realized that his parents had come to him for a reason, to match him, but he didn't need anyone. Why do you talk to Catherine like that? Was displeased with the mother. As I want, so I talk. Tom answered her in the same tone. I don't understand anything. We try to make things better for him, and he is always dissatisfied. She stood up. What's better? Forcing some girl on me when I've got the one I love. He wasn't shying away from anyone. What's it got to do with me at all? The girl jumped to her feet. You have nothing to do with anything. You're just a victim of circumstances. The guy turned toward her. Mike, we're leaving. Demi went to the door. The father looked at his son. It was unclear whether he supported his wife or not. And what are you sitting for? The guy turned to the girl when the door slammed behind the parents. I liked you. I wanted to talk to you. I thought you would be different without them. She was naif and not smart. At least that's what Tom thought. And I don't like you, he said into her eyes. And I'll make you change your mind. She was at her wit's end. All right, try it. He even wondered what she would do. Catherine was a very cunning girl. To get herself a normal guy with money, she was willing to do anything. The next day, she was at Tom's house again. She came with a bottle of good liquor. Come on, the guy raised his glass. To us. Catherine was pretty. Yeah, he nodded and drank. After that, Catherine began to dance quietly. Tom didn't realize how they ended up in bed. You are so passionate, she whispered. You too, the guy simply answered her. In the morning, he opened his eyes, remembered what had happened yesterday, grabbed his head. What had he done? Hello, she turned to him. Why? He cringed, his head hurt. Why what? I didn't force you. You did it yourself, she said in a hurt voice. All right, let's get up. He had already accepted what he had done. She got up and as she went to the kitchen. That turned the guy on. Susie never did that. When he entered the kitchen, she was already standing there with 2 cups of coffee. Her body was so seductive that the young man couldn't resist. He picked her up in his arms and carried her back to bed. And you say you don't like me, she lay on his chest. Come on, you're using forbidden techniques. Maybe we go to your parents and say that together, and you will also apologize because hurt your mother yesterday, suggested to him Catherine. Yes, but not today. He agreed with the girl. He was so used to her, or rather he couldn't resist when he saw her body. Then he didn't think of anyone else. Okay, she turned to him and gave him an enticing look. What are you doing to me? Tom groaned. I love it. She walked over to him. Okay, let's go to Mom's. He was willing to do anything, or they would have spent half a day in bed again. It's us. Tom walked into his parents' apartment. Who's us? He heard his mother speak indignantly and walked towards them. She stepped out into the hallways, splashing her hands. Catherine, how unexpected. Come in. She waited until the young ones took off their shoes and passed into the hall. Yes, we're together with Tom now, she smiled at Demi. I'm so glad of that. Mother ran to the kitchen. Catherine helped her. They quickly set the table, sat down. The conversation was about everything, but on neutral topics. And how did you do it? Demi asked. She looked at her son. That's it. Catherine showed me in all her glory. He spoke the truth. That was commendable. It was obvious that the mother was pleased. From that moment, Tom and Catherine began to live together. As the boy expected, his father took him to work. There was already more than one of their store in town, so there was a lot of business. Tom did his best not to let his father down. Often he saw gypsies at this time, always remembered Susie, but now he thought that it was not worth interfering in her life. Will you propose to me at some point? Catherine asked him directly. When the time is right, he remembered how he had promised Susie to buy a ring. Okay, I'll wait. Catherine also worked for the young man's parents. They only got along well when they were in bed. The rest of the time she annoyed Tom. He didn't understand how he could tie his life to her. And so the children, Demi glared at them when they were visiting. When's the offer coming? Mom, we'll figure it out on our own somehow. Tom wanted to avoid the subject. Not even 6 months passed, as the guy has already given Catherine a ring. He himself came to this decision. No one pushed him, so he thought. I'm so happy. Catherine hugged her future husband. Preparations for the wedding were in full swing. Demi and her friend, who was Catherine's mother, did everything. Where are we going to get a dress? Joan asked. Don't worry. Mike will go and get everything, assured Demi. Aren't the grandmothers coming to the wedding? Said Tom, surprised when he saw the invitation. Mom's not feeling well, and Margaret's with her. Mother didn't even look up. Then we'll go to them ourselves, said Tom firmly. Suit yourself, but it has to be done now. Demi was calling the shots. Catherine, you're coming with me, he called to his fiancée. Of course, she was ready to go with him to the end of the world. So off they went. Joan was really sick, but not sick enough to be assigned a nurse. Hello, they hugged. Who's that? Margaret glared at Catherine. My fiancé, said the grandson. I see she didn't accept him, she realized. Don't remind me about Susie. Tom became sad at once. All right, come in. This time they were at her house. Catherine sat silent practically the whole time. She was afraid to say a word. Why are we silent? Margaret looked at her. I don't know what to say. The girl began to clasp her fingers. There is no need to be shy. Our grandson's fiancée will be a granddaughter for us. The woman tried to speak without teasing. No need, bah, said Tom. Well, whoever the grandson chooses, we'll accept. Margaret already knew that nothing good would come of it. Why aren't you going to the wedding? Ask the question that had brought the young man here. Ask your mother, Margaret said resentfully. All right, that's what I thought. Then we'll celebrate it here too. How are you? He turned to Catherine. Okay, but only after we do everything in town, she agreed. The grandmothers saw their grandchildren off the next day. Bless you, they both crossed the boys. The dress was bought, the restaurant was booked, the guests were invited. All that remained was for the young people to go to the registry office. It's not a difficult thing to do. When the young people came out with a certificate of marriage, everyone began to shout, "Congratulations!" The holiday was fun, except that Tom sat drinking glass after glass and was bored. Closer to nightfall, they went home. The young man just came in and immediately collapsed on the bed and fell asleep. Tom, what about the first wedding night? Said offended Catherine. But he was already snoring. Well, that's fine. She stomped her foot and went to the kitchen. The girl had very big plans for this man. Not 2 months later, the new wife announced her pregnancy. Why was there such a rush? Demi asked her. As it happened, shrugged his shoulders Catherine. Son, are you glad you're going to be a daddy soon? His mother asked him. It was both sarcasm and at the same time no, he really wanted children, but not from this girl. Family life was no good. Catherine was always out of the house, disappearing somewhere. Where are you going? You'll be the Belige, Tom shouted in the evening. Why are you yelling like that? She didn't let him get away with it. Okay, I'm sorry, he was slowing down. Where have you been? Can you explain? He said calmly. It's none of your business, was all she said. Are you cheating on me pregnant? He asked. What are you saying? The girl made big eyes. I can see your eyes are shining. Tom waved at her and left. After such behavior of his wife in the apartment did not want to stay in the apartment, and he again went to a friend. It was fun. It was the 7th month of pregnancy, but Catherine could not walk normally, not lying down. Everything pissed her off. Her husband couldn't bear to see it. He went to his friend's house again and again. Once there he met a girl. She was sitting on the windowsill and shook her head to the beat. That she liked the music. Tom approached her. Yes, she turned around. The guy saw those eyes and couldn't resist. He immediately remembered the one he had loved for so long and so much. What's your name? He asked. Jay-Z, she said. You have such beautiful eyes, he complimented her. Thank you, you're nice too. All the while the girl smiled, dimples appearing on her cheeks. Who's that? Tom came up to his friend. This is Jessie. She's new in our town. A mutual acquaintance introduced her, and today she came, he answered. She's beautiful. Tom couldn't help saying that. Did you talk to her? The landlord asked. A little, Tom said honestly. But she's cool, he went to the others. Tom wanted Jizzy to come to him, but she was still sitting on the windowsill. Then he made up his mind and came over himself. Let's go for a walk, he suggested. We could, she shrugged. They went down to the courtyard, walked a little, and then returned to the gazebo. I've never been like this before, he told her. What? She didn't understand. I saw your eyes and I fell in love. He was being honest. I see, she laughed. They talked until the morning. Jezzy told her where she lived. Tom promised to pick her up tomorrow. The guy came home, even though he really didn't want to. Catherine was asleep. Tom walked to the kitchen, made himself some tea. He didn't want to lie down. He had to get up for work in a couple of hours. All the time he was thinking about his new acquaintance. In the evening, Tom arrived at Jezzy's house. She came out and got into his car. How are you? I'm okay. Tell me about yourself, she asked him. What's there to tell? Didn't you already know? He didn't turn around. About being married, she guessed. Yes, he confirmed. Yes, he confirmed. And I want to tell you right away that we'll be friends only. Right away, she set the record straight. Okay, I hear you. It wasn't the first time he regretted marrying Catherine. Since then, Tom and Jesse had begun to communicate, but only as friends. But now Tom could tell this girl everything. They talked every day. The young man would pick her up. In the evening, they drove to the outskirts of the city and just talked. She knew everything. About Susie, whom Tom loved so much. About Catherine, with whom there was only a physical connection, and everything else. Tom came home, heard his wife screaming. "What's wrong?" He ran into the room. "Call an ambulance." She was lying on the bed, writhing. "But it's still early. The term is not soon." He was surprised. "Call it," screamed the girl. Tom ran to the phone, dialed the number of the ambulance. Catherine was taken to the hospital. "And what did they say?" Demi asked when Tom called her. "That labor has begun," said the son, confused. "It's so early," the mother didn't understand. "That's what I said." There was silence on the other end. "Why didn't you say anything?" Tom repeated twice. "All right, tomorrow we'll go to the hospital," Demi finally said. Tom felt like seeing Jessie again. He decided to drive to her. If she came out, they'd talk, and if she didn't, it had to be. "You just left," she came out to him. "Catherine went to the hospital in an ambulance, so I thought I'd spend a little time with you." He never lied to her or lied to her. Okay. She got in the front seat. It had been hours since they'd talked enough. "How can you talk so much?" she asked him and laughed. "If a person is interesting, why not talk?" He put his arm around her. "Don't." She pulled her hands away. Of course, he was afraid she would stop talking to him. He should have gone home, but he didn't want to. "You shouldn't go home. You should go to the hospital," the girl told him. "Yeah, you're right," he nodded. After Tom drove Jessie home, he drove straight to the hospital where his wife was in labor. Tom thought that premature babies were then placed somewhere or taken away. He didn't exactly know anything about it, but he heard about it. "How is she?" He asked the doctor who was standing on the porch. "She's fine." "You're the father?" he asked. "Yeah, did something happen?" Tom was getting nervous. "Not yet, but maybe the doctor was speaking in riddles." "Speak directly," the young man asked. "I can't yet." He looked Tom in the eye and walked back to the ward. The young man went back to the car. He couldn't get in. He was tapping his fingers on the dashboard of the car. In the morning, Demi arrived. "So, how is Catherine?" she asked. "I do not know. They say that it is fine, but something is not right there," said the son nervously to his mother. "What are you talking about?" The woman furrowed her eyebrows. "I don't know myself," he shrugged. The only thing to do was to wait. When the head of the gynecology department came to work, he came in, but left the building a few minutes later. "Are you Tom?" He came to the car. "Yeah, I was getting a little nervous." "Come with me." A man in a bathrobe beckoned him to follow them. "And I'm his mother." "Can I come with you?" Demi asked. "Yes, come in." He closed the door behind them and led them into his office. "Explain what happened." Tom almost shouted as they walked up the stairs. "Was your wife cheating on you?" They stopped in a flight of stairs at a window. "What?" The young man didn't understand. A difficult question. The doctor waited. "I cannot answer it." Tom turned to his mother. "Why such questions?" She twitched too. "Let's go to the office. I'll tell you everything there." He invited them. The woman and the young man came in and sat down on the chairs. "Would you like to see your son?" The doctor asked them. "Yes." Tom nodded affirmatively. Now, he did not even get up from the chair. "Don't premature babies lie in special boxes?" the woman asked. "Isn't your baby premature?" He turned surprised at her. Of course, the contractions started in the 7th month. Demi was a little silent because she understood roughly what she was going to talk about. "You believe yourself," the doctor grinned. "All right, let's go to the baby." Tom couldn't stand it. "Let's go," led them to the superintendent along the corridor. They entered the room where there was only one baby. "Is that him?" Demi asked. "Yes, this is your son and your grandson." Waited for them to approach. Tom approached. When he saw the boy, his eyes opened wide. The child had dark skin. "That's not my son," he said and stepped away from the crib. "Your wife said as much and wrote a child relinquishment form. Although, as you can see for yourself, she was the only one who gave birth today. We couldn't even switch if we wanted to." He spread his hands. "What's going on?" Demi clutched her head. "I see." Tom left the room. "What you don't understand?" The mother ran out after him. "You don't understand." He looked at her with contempt. You're going to accuse me now, she cried. And who brought her to me? Tom was angry. All right, I agree. But what to do? Now will what? Give the child to an orphanage? Cried Demi. No, if she wrote a waiver, I didn't write it. I watched that baby grow in her belly, and the parent is not the one who gave birth, but the one who brought it up. Indignant young man. All this they told the doctor. After that, Demi went to Catherine. She was lying, turned away from the wall. How could this happen? The woman entered the room. I refused him, said the girl. And Tom did not, said calmly and sat down by the bedside. How? Catherine turned around. That's how I have it, smiled Demi. So he and I are still together. Catherine could not believe it. It turns out so, nodded mother-in-law. I'm sorry, I didn't think it could happen like this. The girl cried. It's all right, as Tom said, there are no other people's children. They hugged each other. All the problems with the documents were solved. Catherine took the waiver. After that, Tom had no time left for work or for communication with Jizzy. He was busy with the baby. They decided to name him John. Where are you going? Tom looked out of the room. Catherine was dressed and wearing makeup as if she were going to a dance. I was going to meet the girls. She glared at him. That I have to sit with John 24 hours a day and you're with the girls. That's not right. He walked out into the hallway. Who needs him, your kid? You wanted to babysit yourself. She defiantly turned around and left the apartment. Tom's hands were dropping. He called Jizzy. Oh, he's so good, said the girl and took the baby in her arms. Yes, Tom was glad that she was so gentle with the boy. Jizzy often could not come, but occasionally still dropped by. Catherine, on the other hand, didn't think about her family at all. She began to disappear, could be absent at night, or even 3 days in a row. Her husband didn't pay attention to it anymore. All this time was occupied by his son, whom he loved so much that closer and more dear to no one was not. When John was 3 years old and he and his father were on the playground, Catherine showed up. Oh, the prodigal mother has returned. Tom looked at her. Give me my son, she asked. What? I don't understand. I'm leaving you for John's real daddy. She took the child in her arms and went. Wait, why do you need him? At first was not needed. What happened now? The young man ran after her. When I found out I was pregnant, Michael didn't know about it and I didn't bother to find him. A few months ago, we got together. He said he loved me and missed me. I told him about John. He made it a condition that he would take me with him if I took my son. She was walking and crying. You realize he's used to me and I'm used to him, Tom pleaded with her. That's it, you can file for divorce yourself. She stopped and turned to her husband. Don't be silly, leave the baby. He didn't want to attract people's attention. You're nothing to him. She turned her back to him again and walked away. Tom looked at her and realized that for the second time in his life, the most precious thing in his life was being taken away from him. He didn't know what to do, how to act. And if they didn't want John again and they put him in an orphanage. Tears stung his eyes. Tom went into the house and got a bottle. It was the only way he knew how to forget everything. Tom, what are you doing? Jesse came to him because she couldn't get through. Go away, don't look at me like that. He didn't want the girl to see it all. What are you doing to yourself? You're still young. And she's right about John being nothing to you. She leaned over him. Jesse, please go away, he pleaded. All right, if I leave now, I won't come back. She was relentless. Okay, he nodded. Tom could only walk to the store. There he would buy an unpretentious snack and a bottle. Once a friend came to see him, and after that he didn't leave the house for days. Jeezy realized that she had to help the man out, but she knew she wouldn't get anywhere. So she went to Tom's parents. Hello, she looked at Demi. Who are you? The woman couldn't recognize her. I'm a friend of your son. He's not well, said Jeezy. Yes, my husband said he hasn't been to work for a few days. Demi got worried. She and Mike drove over to her son's house. The mother couldn't understand what could have happened now. They rarely talked to each other. About the fact that Catherine was walking away from him, Tom did not tell his parents. Jesus, Tom, how could this be? Demi went into the apartment. There was a disgusting odor. The young man himself was lying on the floor. Get away, he shouted. No, you're coming with us. The mother and father dragged her son outside, put him in the car and drove home. Stop it. The mother tried to take the bottle from Tom's hands. Get away! He was swinging at Demi. I'll put you in the hospital, she threatened. I'll put you in a grave, he started to cry. Son, what's happening to you? The woman, exhausted, sat down on a chair. Nothing, I want to die, Tom said to his mother. Calm down, sweetie. Demi would come over and put her arms around his head. Get away from me. He'd shove his mom away. You've ruined my whole life. All right, think of it this way. The woman didn't know what to do. They sat in the kitchen, Demi cooking and Tom drinking again. Suddenly he looked up. Turn up the TV, he shouted. What, didn't his mother expect him to ask her to do just that? Turn up the sound. Tom yelled even harder. Okay. She did as her son asked. Susie is mine. Tom smiled. Demi looked at the image on the screen. Of course she saw the resemblance to the girl who had come to them once, but now she was well dressed, with normal makeup. Susie was brought up in an orphanage, the announcer said, but she was diligent and eager to get ahead. After winning a famous modeling contest, she received the grand prize. Half of the girl gave to charity, found her relatives, and on the other half opened her own salon. Now it is a network, so the girl is known not only in Europe, but also outside. Is that her? Mom couldn't believe what she gave up. Yes, the girl I picked up on the panel, said, somehow moving his tongue, the son. Wow. Demi bit her lip. But as they say, the elbow is close, but you can't bite it. She didn't say anything more to her son. She realized to herself that she was wrong. How could she dispose of other people's lives? She had ended up ruining the life of not just anyone, but her only son. She looked pityingly at Tom, but what to do, she didn't know. Son, stop. Tom's mother asked him in the morning when he went to the fridge to drink again. Leave me alone. That word was stuck in his head. The doorbell rang. His mother went to open the door. There was Jessie standing on the doorstep. What do you want? I told you not to come. Tom saw her. There are guests here to see you, she said. Who the hell is Catherine? Get her out of here. She took my son away from me. He raised his voice so he could hear her from outside the door. No. Jessie opened the door and Suzanne came in. What? He knelt down in front of her. The man you've become, she repeated his mother's words. Forgive me, I've always loved only you. He buried himself in her lap and cried. Stan, go and wash yourself, I'll wait for you here. She took his hand. He got up, did everything the girl asked, and in a few minutes a wrinkled, but still the same Tom in love with her, was sitting in the kitchen. I came to get you. Suzanne smiled. I can't. You become like this. Tom looked at her. It's all because of you, she spoke calmly. I don't understand. He was actually surprised. Then, when I had to go to the finals, I didn't tell you because I had a condition. No relatives or connections. I decided I cared more about you than some contest. I was about to cancel, and then you left. I thought it was fate. She put her palm to his cheek. Tom closed his eyes. Oh my God, what have I done? The mother cried and came to the girl. Forgive me, children, I'll never interfere again. It's all right. Susie smiled at her too. And now what? How you found me? He wanted to know everything. Jessie, she pointed at the girl. I don't understand. Tom was in a stupor. When I started looking for siblings, it turned out that Jessie was my sister, and we didn't even know about each other. When we got to talking, I told her about you, and she told me she'd heard that story before. And recently she told me a scary story that happened with you and John. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, but I've never had the chance. Now I've decided to get my life back on track. She exhaled. Jessie, I underestimated you. Tom told her. Thank you. The girl smiled. Let's go. Susanna waited for his answer. Where? He wasn't quite out of it yet. Anywhere. She was happy to meet Tom. If you still love me, of course. Of course I love you more than life itself. Susie, will you ever forgive me? He took her hands. I forgave you a long time ago. They left the apartment. Demi saw them off in silence, afraid to say anything lest she scare away the good fortune that had come to her son. They drove to Tom's house. There they had to put things in order. After that, they had to file for divorce. When everything was done, Tom, Jessie, and Suzanne were sitting in a restaurant. Wine? Susie asked. No, that's it, I'm not anymore. Tom laughed. I was joking, I wanted to test you, admitted the girl. What are you going to do? Jesse asked them a question. Susie, will you agree to live with me? After all, you have everything now. You can also refuse. He looked at her and held her hand. Let's talk. We haven't seen each other in so many years. We'll see, she replied. Good. He was happy to have her sitting right here next to him. Why don't we go for a vacation? It was Jesse's suggestion again. I know where we could go. Susie suddenly brightened up. Where would we go? Tom was expecting her to talk about the sea. We'll go to your grandmother's in the country. She'd been looking forward to it. It's true, I haven't been there for a long time. The young man agreed with her. They packed up and the next day they were there. I couldn't believe my eyes. They entered Margaret's house. Hello, laughed the girl. My dear, how worried I was about you. They hugged each other. But how? It had been so many years. And the children told her the story, everything from beginning to end. So your mother has calmed down, realized that she was wrong. The woman folded her hands on her chest. I think she did. Tom hoped so. They sat at the table for a long time, then went to see Joan's grandmother. She was sick. It's beautiful here, Jesse said as they walked around the neighborhood. Yes, that's why I came back here. Susie looked at her. Susie and Tom decided to spend the night in the hayloft. They talked about everything. It seemed like the stories that were with them would never end. You will be with me again. Believe me, in so many years I've learned and realized everything. He held her hand. If you promise that you will always be there for me and never leave me, she looked into his eyes. I swear I'll always be there for you. Tom whispered this in Susie's ear. In the morning they told their grandmother that as soon as they were going to get married, they would definitely do it here. After that, the young people went back to Tom's parents' house. You don't have déjà vu? Susie asked the young man. He only laughed in response. Today, Demi greeted Suzanne as if she were the dearest guest. As soon as Catherine and I are divorced, I will propose to Susie, Tom told his parents. And we're very excited about it. Demi was still feeling some embarrassment for her mistakes. And so the long-awaited day arrived. Susie in a beautiful dress, Tom in a suit. He picked her up, and they drove to the registry office. They had Jesse and Tom's friend with them, and no one else was needed. And immediately after the wedding, the young family went to their grandmother's in the village, as promised. You weren't going to invite us. Demi and Mike were already there. To be honest, I thought you were in a fight with your grandmother, Tom said. There was that, but I came over, apologized, went over and gave her Margaret a hug. The tables were set. Those who wanted a treat came. No one was turned away. This should have happened years ago, Tom whispered to Raid. We would have been different then. She kissed him. I love you, he whispered to her. And you're going to be a daddy soon. Susanna laughed. What? The boy jumped up from the table and started running around yelling. Son, sit down. Demi tried to grab his jacket. Ma, my Susie's pregnant, he shouted to the whole village. The woman looked at the girl. She couldn't understand how. She couldn't see her to begin with. She stood up and walked over to her. Daughter, forgive me if you can. I wish you happiness. I see how you love each other, and I am very bitter that I was not willing to see it before. Live in love and harmony, and your father and I will always help you.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.